Welcome to Millennium Daytime Bulletin. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you're watching Millennium News Channel 24. Today I'm bringing you the latest updates from around the world. Let's begin with today's top headlines. Trump freezes $2 billion in Harvard fund after the university rejects the demands. Zelensky urges Trump to visit Ukraine before deal with Russia. China urges Vietnam to resist unilateral bullying as Xi tries to rally region in the face of Trump's tariff. Hungary passes constitutional amendment to ban LGBTQ plus public events seen as a major blow to rights. Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa also declared election winner as the rival demands a recount. Why doesn't Congress name Muslim chief? Prime Minister Modi dared during the Waqf attack. India-EFTA trade pact likely to be implemented before the end of 2025, Piyush Goyal said. Global market rally as investor optimism grows, commodities show steady gains amid stable outlook. MS Dhoni CSK fared against the Lucknow Super Giants at the Ekna Stadium. San Diego Padres make history with series shut out of the Colorado Rockies. Now let's look at the details. The Trump administration has said that it is freezing more than $2 billion in the federal fund for the Harvard University hours after the elite college publicly rejected a list of demands from the White House. Harvard's statement today reinforces the troubling entitlement mindset that is endemic to the nation's most prestigious university and colleges, the Department of Education said in a statement. The White House sent a list of demands to the Harvard last week and that it said that they were designed to fight the anti-Semitism on the campus, including the changes to its governance, hiring practices, and the admission procedures. Harvard strongly rejected the demands on Monday and said that the White House was trying to control its community. It is the first major U.S. university to defy pressures from the Trump administration to change its policies. Also, in a letter to the Harvard community on Monday, its president Alan Garber said that the White House had sent an updated and expanded list of demands on Friday alongside a warning that the university must comply in order to maintain its financial relationship with the government. Also, we have been informed that the administration through our legal counsel that we will not accept their proposed agreement, he wrote. Also, the university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. 00, that is the Mr. Garber added, and the university did not take lightly its obligation to fight against the anti-Semitism but said the government was overreaching. Although some of the demands outlined by the government are aimed at combating anti-Semitism, the majority represent direct governmental regulation of the intellectual conditions at the Harvard, it said. Also, shortly after his letter was sent, the Education Department said that it was freezing $2.2 billion in grants and $60 million in contract to the Harvard immediately. The disruption of learning that has plagued the campuses in the recent years is unacceptable, it said. The harassment of the Jewish student is intolerable. It is time for elite universities to take the problem seriously and commit to the meaningful changes if they wish to continue receiving the taxpayer support, the statement added. The White House said that its own letter on Friday with the Harvard that had in recent years failed to live up to the both intellectual and civil rights obligations and conditions that justify the federal investments. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has invited Donald Trump to visit his country before any deal is struck with Russia to end the war. Please, before any kind of decisions or any form of negotiations, come to see people, civilians, warriors, hospitals, churches, children destroyed or dead, Zelensky said in an interview with the CBS 60-minute program. Also, the interview was recorded before a Russian missile hit the city of Sumy on Sunday, killing 35 people and injuring 117 others. Without providing evidence, Russia said it fired 2 Iskander missiles at the meeting of the Ukrainian soldiers, killing 60 of them. Also, Trump said that he had been told it was a mistake without specifying who told him. At the scene in the Sumy, the conference center, Russia claimed that it was used for the meeting that is smashed, and the crater marks that the spot where the missile has hit. The roof is no more. Kyiv has not confirmed the gathering of the military officers. However, a regional mayor in the Sumy has demanded the resignation of the local security officials. If needed, they allowed such a meeting to happen. Any gathering of soldiers is a prime target for Russia. Also, in the previous attacks and indeed throughout the invasion of Ukraine, civilians have been seen as acceptable collateral damage by the Russian military. The attack comes as the United States, Ukraine's strongest military ally, has been pursuing on an end to war. Now it is the 4th year through the negotiations under the Trump administration. Against about the attack, also the United States President said that it was terrible and that it had been told that they made a mistake, but did not elaborate. Earlier, Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, that is retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, said that the attack had crossed any line of decency. However, it remains to be seen if Trump will accept Zelensky's invitation. Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, is the only senior member of the Trump's team to visit Kyiv, and that was to demand the Zelensky sign a contract heavily weighed in the Washington's favor to trade Ukraine's mineral wealth for the continued military aid. Also, Zelensky refused. Zelensky and the Ukrainian president and other people's officials have highlighted the Russia's continued attack on the civilians, while the Trump attempts to improve relationship with the Moscow in search of a ceasefire. United States Special Envoy Steve Witkoff has already held 3 meetings with Vladimir Putin, and Kyiv is adamant that Moscow will exploit this as it continues to erode the Ukrainians' territory. We'll have to see how the issues get resolved. Xi Jinping has urged Vietnam to resist the unilateral bullying and uphold free and open trade as it begins a high-stake diplomatic tour of the region's major export-reliant economies in the bid to position himself as a country as a stable partner in contrast to the United States. The Chinese leader arrived in the communist-ruled Vietnam on Monday and is set to visit the Malaysia and Cambodia from Tuesday to Friday, and also the countries that have been seen the growing trade and investment ties with China in the recent years. In the meeting with the Vietnam's top leadership Monday, Xi also said that the two countries should work together to maintain the stability of the global free trade system and industrial and the supply chains, according to the Chinese state news agency Xinhua. China's mega market is always open to Vietnam. Also, Xi was quoted as saying by the Xinhua that adding that the China and the Vietnam should strengthen the strategic and the focus should be on the joint opposed by the unilateral. Small boat with a single sail cannot withstand the stormy waves, and only by working together can we sail steadily and far, he said. Also, the in-person trips comes just days after the US President Donald Trump paused his reciprocal tariff on most countries for 90 days, narrowing the focus on his trade war squarely on the China. Also, as Washington and Beijing exchange record high levies, Southeast Asian nations still catching their breath from the now suspended US tariffs are growing increasingly anxious about being caught in the crossfire between the world's two largest economies. Seeking to capitalize on the turmoil unleashed by the Trump's tariff whiplash, also Xi has cast China as a reliable partner and defender of the global trade. Vietnam and Cambodia were amongst the highest hit by the Trump's tariff, set at 46% and 49% respectively before the pause. But while countries are rolling out the red carpet for Xi, analysts suggest that they also need to tread carefully and avoid the appearance they are siding with China and potentially risk provoking Trump during their own negotiation over the pending tariffs. We'll have to see how the issues get resolved. Hungary's parliament on Monday passed an amendment to the constitution that allows the government to ban the public events by the LGBTQ plus communities, a decision that the legal scholars and critics call another step towards authoritarianism by the populist government. Also, the amendment, which required a two-thirds vote, passed along the party lines with 140 votes for the 21 that were against it. It was proposed by the ruling Fidesz KDNP coalition led by the populist Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Ahead of the vote, the final step for the amendment was that the opposition politicians and other protesters attempted to blockade the entrance for parliamentary parking garage, with the police physically removing the demonstrators who have zipped ties and to bind themselves together. The amendment declares that the children's right to moral, physical and spiritual development supersede any right other than the right to life, including that to the peaceful assembly. Also, Hungary's contentious child protection legislation prohibits the depiction or promotion of the homosexuality to minor aged below 18. The amendment codifies a law that is fast-tracked through the parliament in March that bans public events held by the LGBTQ plus communities, including the popular Pride event in the Budapest that draws thousands annually. The law also allows immunities and authorities to use the facial recognition tools to identify people who attend the prohibited events such as Budapest Pride, and can come with a fine up to $546. Also, David Beidou, a lawmaker with the opposition Momentum Party who participated in the attempted blockade, said before the vote that Orban and Fidesz for the past 15 years have been dismantling democracy and the rule of law, and in the past 2 or 3 months we see that this process has been sped up. Also, he said that the election approach in the 2026 and Orban's party lag in the poll behind a popular new challenger from the opposition. They will do everything in their power to stay in power. Opposition lawmakers used air horns to disrupt the vote, which continued after a few moments. Also, Hungary's government has campaigned against the LGBTQ plus communities in the recent years and argues its child protection policies, which forbid the availability to minors or any material that mentions homosexuality, are needed to protect children from what it called the woke ideology and gender madness. Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa won the country's presidential election on Sunday based on the preliminary results, an electoral official has said, as the main rival demanded a recount for the vote following a race overshadowed by the drug-fueled violence that has consumed the once peaceful South American country. Noboa, a conservative, has also made the fighting and the crime and the economic revitalization two of its main goals, summed up in the slogan New Ecuador, as he faces, among other challenges, violence by the criminal group and an energy crisis that has caused constant blackouts in the country. With 90% of the ballot counted, the trend is in favor of Noboa and it is irreversible, and he is considered the winner. National Electoral Council President Dina Atamait also told in a press conference this on Sunday. But Noboa's closest challenger, leftist lawyer Luisa Gonzalez, also said that she has rejected the result and demanded a recount. In the name of people we represent, we do not recognize the result presented by the National Electoral Council, that is NEC, Gonzalez also said in front of the supporters. I refuse to believe that people would also prefer lies instead of truth, violence instead of peace and unity, Gonzalez said in Quito, according to the Reuters. Also, we are going to demand a recount, and then for the open ballot boxes should also be happening. Noboa meanwhile thanked those who voted for him during a rally which his supporters in the beach town of Olon. The day that has been historic. This victory has been historic. A victory for more than 10 points, a victory more than 1 million voters where there is no doubt who is the winner, Noboa said. Sunday's vote was the latest electoral contest between the two candidates candidates. In the 2023 snap election to complete the term of the previous president, Noboa defeated Gonzalez with just over 50% of the votes. Noboa sought a full 4-year term to continue his controversial war of gangs and drugs trafficker, which as so far has been limited. Also, the 37-year-old leader has declared numerous state of emergency, deployed military units to tackle gang activity, and began construction on a new maximum security prison after an infamous criminal leader escaped from the custody last year. But according to figures from the government, the start to this year has seen an unprecedented level of violence with more than 1,000 homicides. Data from the Organized Crime Research Center Insight Crime suggests that Ecuador has the highest homicide rate in the Latin America. In an all-out attack on Congress for its stand against the Waqf Amendment Act, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the Congress has only appeased Muslim fundamentalists and its opposition to the new law proves this. He also questioned why the Congress does not name a Muslim president and reserve 50% of the seat of the election tickets for the Muslim candidates. The Prime Minister was speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the Hisar Airport in Haryana. He said that the airport will be a significant milestone in the state's development journey. Remembering B.R. Ambedkar on his birth anniversary, Dalit icon and the constitutional architect, the Prime Minister said that Dr. Ambedkar's struggle inspired his government. Every decision and policy is dedicated to Baba Sahib Ambedkar, he said. Targeting the Congress, he said that the opposition parties made the constitution a tool for gaining power. During the emergency, the spirit of the constitution was killed to retain power. The constitution talks about a secular civil code, but Congress never implemented it. Today, a uniform civil code has been implemented in Uttarakhand. Unfortunately, the Congress is opposing this. Congress never bothered to check if the benefits of the reservation reached the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and OBC communities, the Prime Minister said. We must never forget that Congress did to Baba Sahib Ambedkar. When he was alive, the party insulted him repeatedly. They made him lose elections twice. Also, Congress wanted to uproot him. They conspired to keep him out of the system. After his death, they even tried to erase his memory. Baba Sahib stood for equality, but Congress spread the virus of the vote bank politics throughout the country, he said. Also, the Prime Minister said B.R. Ambedkar has ruled out reservation on the religious grounds. Congress appeasement politics has harmed the Muslims too. Congress has only made some fundamentalists happy. The rest of the society remained uneducated and poor. The biggest proof of this wrong approach is the Waqf law, he said. The Congress made arbitrary changes in the Waqf law for the political mileage and the changes that turned the constitution on its head, the Prime Minister said. I want to ask these vote bank hungry leaders, if you care about Muslims, why doesn't Congress make a Muslim party and make it as their president? Give 50% also the tickets in the Lok Sabha election to the Muslims. If they win, they would put forward their views. But no, they won't give Muslims anything in the Congress. They will snatch the right of citizens. Their intentions was never to do anything good for anyone, he said. The Prime Minister said lakhs of hectares of land are Waqf property. The implementation process of the Free Trade Agreement FTA between India and the four nations European bloc EFTA is progressing fast and is expected to come into force before the end of this year, the Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said. The two sides signed the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement, that is TEPA, on March 10, 2024. Under the pact, India has received an investment commitment of USD 100 billion in 15 years from the grouping, while also allowing several products such as the Swiss watches, chocolate and cut and polished diamond at lower or zero duties. The European Free Trade Association, that is EFTA, also has the members that are Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland. Yes, EFTA is progressing very fast, Goyal said PTI when asked if the agreement would come into effect this year. The minister said that the Swiss Council of States have approved the agreement and now will go to their national councils for approval. So this is an overwhelming support in the political circles in the Switzerland for the TEPA TEPA with EFTA is truly a sign of the times to come, and their statement also, it shows that it is very clear and important hurdle that we have passed, and we need to bring this in the entry to force by the autumn of 2025 before the end of the calendar year 2025, Goyal said. The bloc committed an investment of USD 100 billion, USD 50 billion within 10 years after the implementation of the agreement, and another USD 50 billion in the next 5 years, which would facilitate the creation of 1 million direct jobs in India. This is the first of its kind pledge agreed upon any kind of trade deal signed by India so far. The commitment is the key substance of the TEPA, that is the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement, which took almost 16 years to conclude for India in return for opening its market for the several products coming from the EFTA nations. There is a provision in the agreement that if the proposed investments would not come because of some reason, India can suspend duty concessions to the 4 countries. Also, domestic consumers will get access to the high quality Swiss products such as the watches, chocolates, biscuits and clocks at lower prices, as India will phase out custom duties under the Trade Pact on these grounds and on these goods over the 10 years. It is the time taking to implementation of the program or the agreement due to the elaborate ratification process of these pacts in different countries. In India, such agreements are approved by the Union Cabinet. In EFTA countries, they need approval from their parliament. On the progress of FTA negotiations with other countries, Goyal said that it has held meeting with the new UK Trade Minister on this proposed pact. India and the UK are expected to hold the next round of talks for the proposed FTA later this month to resolve the pending issues and close the negotiations. The talk for the proposed FTA began in January 2022. The 14th round of the talks stalled as the two nations stepped into their general election cycles. We'll have to see how the proposals go forward. Now bringing you latest updates on today's market trends. Global stock markets are witnessing a broad-based rally today, signaling a strong risk-on sentiment among investors. In the United States, all major indices are trading higher, reflecting growing optimism about the economic outlook and the potentially dovish signal from the Federal Reserves. Also, the Dow Jones Industrial Average surged by 312.08 points or 0.78%, closing at 40,524.79, a sign of continued confidence in the blue chip stocks. The S&P 500, a broader benchmark for the US economy, climbed 42.61 points to reach 5,400, a 0.79% of gain, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq added 107 points or 0.64% to close at 16,831.48, indicating sustained enthusiasm in the technology sector. Perhaps one of the most telling movement came from the CBOE volatility index, that is VIX, often referred to the Wall Street fear gauge, which plunged 17.76% to 30.89. Such a sharp drop in the VIX suggests a major decline in the short-term market volatility expectation, indicating that the investors are increasingly confident and less concerned about the immediate downside risk. Supporting the optimism, the Russell 2000, an index that tracks smaller US companies, rose by 1.11%, reflecting the renewed investor interest in the growth-oriented and domestically focused equities. The bullish sentiment isn't limited to the United States. North of the border, Canadian markets are also experiencing notable gains. The S&P TSX Composite jumped to 78.73 points, that is a 1.15%, to reach 23,866.87, while the S&P TSX 60 index advanced 15.51 points to reach 1,400. Also, this reflects strong performance in the Canadian energy, financial and material sector, which tend to benefit from the global economic upswings and the commodity strength. In the Latin America, markets are rallying even more impressively. The Brazil's Bovespa index surged by a massive 1,771.51 points, that is 1.39%, to reach 1,29,000, likely driven by the combination of favorable commodity prices and investors' sentiment about the country's fiscal outlook. Child's S&P IPSA rose by 1.90%, adding 141.51 points to reach 7,500, suggesting renewed optimism in one of the South America's most stable economies. Mexico S&P BMV IPC wasn't also far behind, posting a 1.73% gain, that is up by 892 points, closing at 52,391, likely supported by the strong remittances, robust manufacturing data, or easing inflation. Overall, today's market action paints a picture of the widespread investor confidence across the Americas. The synchronized uptick in the equity market suggests that investors are reacting positively to the combination of macroeconomic stability, potential interest rate pauses or cut by the central bank, and improving corporate earning. In this momentum occurs and continues, it could also set the stage for the sustained rally for the next quarter. Also, commodities market are showing modest yet steady gains today, reflecting a cautiously optimistic tone about and among the investors. In the energy sector, both WTI crude oil and Brent crude oil posted small upticks, rising 0.41% and 0.37% respectively. WTI crude is now priced at $61.78, while Brent sits at $65. Although these gains are moderate, they suggest underlying confidence in the global energy demand, possibly due to the improved economic indicators or expectation of tighter supply from the OPEC plus production cuts. Natural gas also experienced a gain of 0.51%, closing at $3.34. These movements may be attributed to the seasonal demand expectation or inventory adjustment as traders look ahead to the warmer month with increased energy usage for cooling. On the metal front, precious metals continued to show resilience. Gold rose by 0.39% to reach $3,239, continuing its strong performance near the upper end of the 52 weeks range. Silver followed the similar trend, climbing 0.32% to reach $32. These gains in the metal could reflect the safe haven approach at the buying and amid the global geopolitical uncertainties of the inflation hedging behavior. Meanwhile, the agricultural sector also saw some softness, with the soya beans falling slightly 0.41% to reach $10.38. The minor decline could also be due to the favorable weather conditions boosting crop outlooks or a stronger US dollar impacting the export competitiveness. Despite the dip, the soybean prices remain well within the 52-week trading range. Overall, today's commodity market movement suggests a broadly stable outlook with a selective strength in the energy and metal, while the agriculture shows slight weakness. Investor sentiment appears balanced with a watchful eye on the macroeconomic cues, central bank policy signals, and the global trade dynamics. Now let's look at some sports highlights. IPL yesterday's match, captain MS Dhoni rolled back from the years with an unbeaten 26 as the Chennai Super Kings bounced back from the 5 losses to down the Lucknow Super Giants by 5 wickets in the IPL 2025 on Monday. It was CSK's second win in the 7 matches. They remain at the bottom of the table. Let's look at what happened at the Ekana Stadium. Rishabh Pant made an IPL 50 for the LSG IPL yesterday's match. Batting first, the LSG lost Aiden Makaram and the Nicholas Puran cheaply. It was the Mitchell Marsh and the Rishabh Pant who resurrected the CSK ship with the 50-run stand. Although Marsh was dismissed for 30, skipper Pant continued to record his maiden 50 in the LSG colours. Also, Pant was finally dismissed for 63 of the Matisha Patirana. MS Dhoni enters history books. That MS Dhoni entered history books by the becoming of the first first cricketer to effect 200 dismissals in the IPL. He took the catch of the Rishabh Pant, effected a stumping of the Ayush Badoni and a run out in the final over. Not to forget that LSG lost 3 wickets in the final over of the post 166, 7 runs in total 20 overs. Sheikh Rashid Rachin Ravindra solid start also happened. In the reply, the CSK made a strong start with the rebutant, that is the Sheikh Rashid, complimenting the Rachin Ravindra for the opening wicket. The 20-year-old Rashid smashed 6 fours in his 19-ball 27 before being dismissed. Ravindra also perished for 37 before the LSG came back into the game. It was a weekend of first for the Santiago Padres as their hot start to the season show little sign of slowing down, and it's hard to know which statistics to start with. On Sunday, the Padres became the first MLB team since the then named Cleveland Indians in the 2017 of the holding of the opponent scoreless over a series of the least 3 games, that to win off 6-0 over the Colorado Rockies. It is also the first time that the franchise history that the team has achieved this feat. The series result also marked the first time that the Rockies have ever been dealt a shutout in the series of the 3 or more games, according to the MLB.com. Also, they say that there's no place like home, and for the Padres and the Petco Park, that certainly remains and seems to be the case. With a victory, the Santiago moved to 10-0 at home, another franchisee records. Also, additionally, the Padres became the second team in the MLB history, matching the 1966 Cleveland team to sack up and to shut out in the first 16 games of the season, all of which have come at the Petco Park. That is the only other time a team has also held its opponent to fewer than the dozen runs over its first 9 home games happened in 1876, according to the Opta, the first year of the MLB. Veteran outfielder Jason Hayward said that the key of the hot start is the Padres' ability to play as a team. I think no matter what the result is on any way or the any given day on both sides of the baseball, let's go up there, have our approaches, Hayward said after the Saturday's 2-0 victory over Colorado. That's all for now. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for more updates. Log in to stay updated with the latest news on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at Millennium News 24. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, Millennium News 24. You can also watch us on Android and iOS devices as well as on Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV and all smart TV platforms. Enjoy entertainment and latest news with us. Download the Millennium TV app, Millennium TV USA for Android and Millennium News on Google. Thank you for being part of Millennium News Channel 24.